Level 1, the Monopoly Man's Missing Monocle. The Monopoly Man is one of the most iconic characters in pop culture. You probably picture him instantly: top hat, handlebar mustache, black suit, and of course, a monocle perched on his eye. But here's the twist: he doesn't wear a monocle. He never has. In every version of the Monopoly board game, on every box, card, or promotional image, Rich Uncle Pennybags has no monocle. This fact has stunned countless people who remember it vividly. Some say they can recall playing the game as children and studying the card pieces. Others mention Halloween costumes or cartoon parodies where the monocle is front and center. So what's going on? The theory is that people are confusing him with Mr. Peanut, the Planters' mascot, who does wear a monocle. But this explanation doesn't satisfy everyone. The image of a monocled Monopoly Man is so deeply imprinted in public consciousness that its absence feels like a glitch. Could our memories be cross-wired by similar characters, or are we remembering a version of him that existed somewhere else, another time, another place, another dimension? Whatever the case, the missing monocle is more than an optical illusion. It's a symbol of how our most basic visual certainties can shift under our feet. Level 2, Looney Tunes or Looney Tunes. Ask anyone about their favorite childhood cartoons, and Looney Tunes is sure to come up. You might even picture the logo: zany characters like Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck leaping out in front of a circular backdrop, with the name Looney Tunes emblazoned across the screen. Except it's not tunes, it's tunes. Despite decades of association with animated cartoons, and the fact that tune is slang for cartoon, the actual name is Looney Tunes, as in musical tunes. The reasoning goes that it was originally meant to parody Disney's Silly Symphonies, which were musically driven animations. That makes sense in hindsight, but it doesn't explain why so many people distinctly remember it being spelled tunes. There are no old versions with the tunes spelling, no retro covers, no lost episodes, no promotional material that says otherwise. It's always been tunes, and yet thousands, if not millions, remember it differently. Some even claim to recall commercials or bumper graphics using tunes. This disconnect between memory and reality is at the heart of the Mandela Effect. Is it a simple case of linguistic logic overriding fact, or something stranger, an echo of a version of reality that no longer exists? Level 3, Febreze or Febreze. You've likely seen it in your home, on a store shelf, or in a commercial, the air freshener that makes rooms smell clean and fabrics smell new. But how do you spell it? Many people remember it as Febreze, with 2 E's in the middle, mimicking the word breeze. That seems intuitive, doesn't it? Surprisingly, the actual spelling is Febreze, just 1 E in the second half, and this small change has thrown off a lot of people. The idea that a product meant to freshen like a breeze wouldn't include the word breeze in its name feels off. It's not just a minor misspelling, it feels like rewriting logic. Some recall seeing it with the double E on actual bottles. Others argue that the way it's pronounced, emphasizing the breeze, contributed to the memory. But no matter how many people insist, the historical branding has always shown the Febreze version. This discrepancy is a prime example of how branding can intersect with expectation to produce false memories. But in the context of the Mandela Effect, it raises deeper questions. Why do so many minds rewrite the same detail in the same way? Are we all simply making the same error, or is something unseen rewriting the small details around us? Level 4, Mirror, Mirror on the Wall. You probably remember the classic line from Disney's Snow White. The evil queen stands before her magical mirror and famously says, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?" It's one of the most quoted phrases in all of pop culture, repeated in films, TV shows, parodies, and bedtime stories for generations. But watch the movie again. In this reality, the line is actually, magic mirror on the wall. That's right, there is no mirror, at least not anymore. This revelation has shocked fans and fueled the Mandela Effect community for years. People claim they not only remember the mirror line, but were even taught it that way in school plays or storytelling books. Some swear their old VHS tapes once contained the line, only for it to be different upon rewatching. So how did this happen? Could it be a case of cultural repetition overriding the original line, or is it another example of a subtle shift, an echo from a timeline where the Queen really did say, "Mirror, mirror"? It's hard to believe such an iconic quote could be collectively misremembered, and yet here we are. Level 5, Oscar Mayer or Oscar Mayer. The jingle is burned into many of our minds. My Bologna has a first name, it's OSCAR. My Bologna has a second name, it's MAYER. But here, S where things get strange. Tons of people remember it as Oscar Mayer, spelled MEYER. The company, however, insists it's always been Mayer. Look at the packaging. The branding has never changed, but something feels off. It's not just that people think it was spelled with an E, it's that they can hear it that way in the old commercials. The vowel sounds blur, and our brains may have filled in the more common spelling without us realizing. But is that all it is? Just a case of auditory assumption? Some Mandela Effect believers suggest there were versions of the commercials or packaging that used Mayer, and that they've somehow been scrubbed or altered in this reality. Others claim the lyrics of the jingle once matched their memory more clearly. The implications. Perhaps reality's edits aren't as subtle as we think, they're just small enough to go unnoticed unless you're looking closely. And in this case, a child's song about lunch meat has become one of the most memorable glitches in our collective consciousness. Level 6, Kit Kat wears the hyphen. The famous chocolate bar has been around for decades, and most people can easily picture its name in their minds, Kit Kat, with a clear hyphen dividing the two syllables. It's how we say it, how we write it, and how we remember seeing it. But the truth, there is no hyphen, not now and supposedly not ever. The official branding is Kit Kat, one word, no dash. This detail has startled many fans who swear they've seen it differently. Some claim their childhood Halloween candy bag said Kit Kat. Others say old advertisements, vending machines, or wrappers showed the hyphen clearly. Even Photoshop mock-ups of old packaging tend to include the hyphen, suggesting the error might be so deep-rooted, it's embedded in our instinct. So what's going on here? Is it just a branding quirk that everyone misremembered? Or is it a trace from another version of reality, one where Kit Kat really did exist with the dash? Either way, it highlights a key element of the Mandela Effect, the discrepancy between what should be true and what is. It's a tiny dash, just a line, and yet it opens up a doorway to something much bigger. Level 7, we are the champions, but not of the world. If you've ever heard Queen's iconic anthem, We Are the Champions, you probably remember the final lyric. The song builds to a crescendo. Freddie Mercury belts out, "We are the champions," and then you wait for the satisfying close, "of the world." Except it never happens. In the original studio version of the song, the final "of the world" isn't there. The song just ends with "We are the champions" and fades out. This has caused widespread confusion and frustration. Fans swear they heard that line growing up. Some claim they remember singing it in school or hearing it in sports broadcasts. Others insist that in live versions of the song, the line does appear, which is partly true. Some concert recordings do end with "of the world," but the official recording does not. Why do so many people have such a vivid memory of a line that isn't there? It could be that we've blended different versions in our heads, or perhaps pop culture parodies repeated the phrase so often that it became true in our collective memory. But the consistency of the false memory is what makes this case compelling. It's not just one person, it's millions. Level 8, Sex and the City or Sex in the City. For many fans of the iconic HBO series, the show was always called Sex in the City. It rolled off the tongue naturally. It described the premise, the romantic and sexual lives of women in New York City. In conversations, on blogs, even in early interviews, people referred to it that way. But in this reality, it's Sex and the City, and it always has been. What's strange is that this misremembering isn't rare, it's extremely common. People claim to have seen DVDs, merchandise, and even title cards that read Sex in the City. Some say they remember the logo being stylized with a lowercase in between larger Sex and the City. But now, any trace of that version is gone. So what's going on? Could it just be a slip of the tongue that spread culturally over time? Or is this another Mandela effect, another subtle rewrite of our shared past? When millions remember the same false detail, it challenges the idea that memory is merely individual. It feels like a thread was pulled from the fabric of reality, and somehow we all felt it. Level 9, the Berenstain Bears. You probably remember the lovable bear family from your childhood. Maybe you had the books, watched the cartoons, or saw them on television. Now think back to how their last name was spelled. Do you remember it as Berenstain with an EIN at the end? If so, you're not alone. Millions of people have this exact memory. But look again, in this timeline, it's always been spelled Berenstain with an IN. What makes this strange is that there are no official records showing it was ever spelled with an E, no old book covers, no merchandise, nothing. Yet countless people swear they remember it differently. Some even claim to have seen old VHS tapes or books with the E spelling, only for them to change or disappear over time. Why does this collective false memory exist? Is it simply a widespread error in childhood perception, or is something more mysterious at play? Could it be a case of mass misremembering, or a subtle sign that we've somehow shifted into an alternate timeline where the Berenstain Bears were always spelled this way? When you realize just how many people remember it differently, it starts to challenge the nature of memory itself. Is it possible that our brains all made the same mistake, or is it more likely that the past has changed in some way? For many, the Berenstain Bears aren't just children's characters. They're the first sign that something is very wrong with the world we remember. Level 10, Curious George has no tail. Think about Curious George, the little monkey from the children's books, always getting into trouble, always learning something new. He climbed trees, swung from branches, and acted, well, exactly like a monkey. So naturally, you probably remember him having a tail. Maybe you can picture him dangling from a tree or a light fixture, hanging by that tail. It seems like a logical detail. Except it never existed. In every published version of Curious George, from the original books to television shows, George has never had a tail. Not once. Despite being a monkey, an animal nearly defined by its prehensile tail, George is tailless. This revelation has caused widespread disbelief. People claim to vividly remember seeing it. They remember the tail being used in playful, monkey-like ways. Artists even report drawing him with one. So how did this widespread false memory occur? Was it a case of assumption filling in the blanks, or are we tapping into an alternate memory, a remnant from another version of reality? If George never had a tail, why are so many of us so sure that he did? The Mandela Effect doesn't offer answers, only questions, and a creeping doubt about how well we know the world around us. And if we can be wrong, all of us, about something so simple, what else might we be wrong about? What else might have changed while we weren't paying attention? Level 11, the Flintstones or the Flintstones. Everyone remembers the modern Stone Age family, Fred, Wilma, Barney, and the gang from the Flintstones. But here's a strange twist. Many people are adamant that the name of the show was the Flintstones, without the first T. Take a moment, picture the logo. Does it read Flintstones with two T's or just Flintstones? Countless people insist they grew up with the latter. It seems to make sense phonetically. After all, nobody emphasizes that middle T when they speak the name aloud. But the truth is, the original and only spelling is Flintstones. Always has been. Even old merchandise and archived TV guides confirm it. So why does Flintstones feel more natural, even correct to so many of us? It could be that our brains streamlined the pronunciation over time, eventually overwriting the written form, but some claim otherwise. They remember TV intros, toy packaging, even VHS tapes where the title was spelled Flintstones. Are we just lazy with our enunciation, or are we recalling echoes of a parallel timeline where Flintstones was the official version? Either way, this small linguistic detail lingers uncomfortably in the mind. If even the titles of our childhoods are uncertain, what else might be up for revision? Level 12, the fruit of the loom cornucopia. Visualize the fruit of the loom logo. You probably see a pile of fruit, grapes, apples, leaves spilling out of a large horn-shaped basket, a cornucopia. It's a staple of the brand's identity, etched into childhood memories through commercials, packaging, and maybe even underwear tags. But here's the kicker: there is no cornucopia. There never was. The official fruit of the loom logo has always featured just fruit, arranged in a tidy bundle. No horn, no woven wicker container. And yet, tens of thousands of people remember it vividly. Some even claim to remember drawing it in school assignments or seeing it repeatedly on commercials during Saturday morning cartoons. So how do we explain this mass false memory? Some believe it's just a mix-up with the Thanksgiving symbol of abundance, but others feel something more unsettling, like we're catching glimpses of altered history. The cornucopia version is so detailed in the minds of many that it's hard to chalk it up to simple error. Is it a case of visual conflation, or is the logo yet another artifact rewritten by a reality that quietly shifted when we weren't looking? Level 13, Cheez-It or Cheez-Its. Those crispy, square-shaped snacks have a name that sparked heated debates. Is it Cheez-It or Cheez-Its? Ask around and you'll likely hear the plural, Cheez-Its. It makes sense. After all, nobody eats just one. The collective image in people's minds has always involved a box with the word Cheez-Its emblazoned on the front. But look closely, the brand name is Cheez-It, singular. Even on multi-pack boxes or large servings, the name remains unchanged. No S, never has been. Why do so many remember it differently? Some suggest it's simply the English language influencing how we refer to multiple items. Others argue it's not just about pluralization, it's about branding that many remember visually as ending in S, Reddit threads, personal anecdotes, even homemade art projects over the years reference Cheez-Its. So is this just a trick of grammar, or is it another microscopic tier in the narrative of our lives, where we remember a version of the box, the name, the feel of the product that no longer exists? This small snack raises big questions. How reliable is a lifetime of consumer memory? Level 14, the location of New Zealand. Pull up a map in your mind. Picture Australia. Now picture New Zealand. Where is it? Most people will say southeast of Australia, and that would be correct in this timeline. But for a surprising number of people, their internal maps don't match up. They remember New Zealand being northeast or directly east of Australia, as if it had drifted away from its current position. Geography isn't usually fluid, but when it comes to the Mandela Effect, even maps aren't immune. Online forums and videos have compiled personal accounts of people who claim their school atlases placed New Zealand in a different location. They aren't just misremembering, they're certain. Is it a simple case of faulty education, or something more intriguing? Some Mandela Effect enthusiasts believe maps are among the most reliable indicators of timeline inconsistencies. After all, we've stared at them for years. If landmasses can shift, or at least our memories of them can, What does that say about the stability of our world? This isn't just a matter of islands, it's a matter of perspective, and perhaps perception shaping reality itself. Level 15, Chartreuse isn't red. The name Chartreuse evokes elegance, and oddly for many people, it evokes a color, specifically a deep red or reddish pink. Ask them what color Chartreuse is, and they'll describe something. Zing warm and vibrant, romantic even. But they're wrong. Chartreuse is green, a yellow-green to be precise, and this isn't just an occasional error. There are millions of people who are shocked to discover that Chartreuse isn't red. Some claim to have learned it in art class, seen it labeled that way in clothing catalogs, or even chosen it when describing paint or makeup. So what happened? One theory is that people confuse Chartreuse with magenta, maroon, or cerise, colors that sound vaguely French or upscale. Others think it's a linguistic hiccup, where the exotic sound of the word, chartreuse, lends itself more easily to red in the mind. But what if that's not it? What if our shared vocabulary was edited, just slightly, like a variable tweaked in code? What if chartreuse used to be red, and we're just remembering the wrong version of a reality that no longer aligns with ours? Even color, it seems, isn't immune to the rewriting of reality. Level 16, C-3PO's silver leg. Think back to the original Star Wars trilogy. Picture C-3PO shiny, golden, humanoid, and unmistakably robotic. Now focus on his legs. What color are they? Most fans will tell you they were gold, completely gold. But in the original films, C-3PO has a silver lower right leg. It's not subtle. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. But for some reason, an overwhelming number of viewers, lifelong fans, insist they remember him being entirely gold. Even more confusing, toy versions of C-3PO are almost always fully gold. Halloween costumes, posters, lunchboxes, all gold. So when people find out about the silver leg, it feels like a betrayal of memory. George Lucas and others have confirmed it was always silver, due to a lack of replacement parts during production. But here's the Mandela twist. If so many people remember it differently, how did this alternate memory become so widespread? Is it a trick of lighting, of perception, of merchandising, or is it a marker of a reality that's subtly shifted? A universe where the protocol droid we all knew never needed mismatched metal. And if our minds rewrote something so visible, what else are we getting wrong, or remembering right in the wrong world? Level 17, life is like a box of chocolates. Tom Hanks as Forrest Gump sits on a bench and tells a stranger, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. It's one of the most iconic lines in movie history, quoted endlessly, printed on merchandise, and engraved in pop culture. Except that's not the line. In the actual film, Forrest says, life was like a box of chocolates, not is, was. It seems like a minor change, but it drastically alters the feel of the quote. And yet, nearly everyone remembers it the other way. Why? The common theory is that promotional material and parodies misquoted the line over the years, cementing the wrong version in our collective mind. But others claim to have rewatched the movie and heard it change, reporting that DVDs, VHS tapes, even TV reruns used to say is, only to say was now. Is this a case of cultural telephone, or is something more bizarre happening, something that rewrote a foundational line in one of the most famous movies ever made? In a reality filled with shifting details, even chocolate starts to taste different. Level 18, the Volkswagen split logo. Look at the Volkswagen emblem in your mind. A sleek circle with the letters V and W merged together, right? Wrong, at least, in this version of reality. Today's logo has a distinct split between the V and the W, a thin line of space separating them. but many people remember the two letters being connected, joined, overlapping, creating a clean, unified look. Some swear they saw it that way for years, on actual cars, keychains, and steering wheels. Car enthusiasts, mechanics, even dealership workers claim they never saw a gap, yet now every instance, past and present, shows that divide. Could it be a simple logo redesign that we all missed? Volkswagen insists the gap has always been there, that it's an intentional part of the design, going back decades. So why do so many remember it differently? This Mandela effect is especially strange because it involves a static object, a logo that people see daily, something supposedly immune to memory error. But in the age of digital forensics and logo timelines, even these facts seem to shift. It's as if history itself is being edited quietly, line by line, with us left to question our most mundane certainties. Level 19, Skechers or Skechers. The popular shoe brand is pronounced exactly like it sounds, Skechers, so it makes perfect sense that people remember the name being spelled with a T, Skechers, like the word sketch, just with ers at the end. But that's not how it's spelled. It's Skechers, no T. Despite the official branding always being that way, countless people remember seeing it spelled with a T, some recall commercials, store signs, and even owning boxes with the altered spelling. The misspelling feels more correct than the real one, which only deepens the confusion. Why would so many people implant a letter that was never there? Is it simply because sketch is a more familiar root word, or is this another Mandela effect, one where people are remembering a version of the brand from another thread of reality? In this version, the T never existed, but in the minds of many, it was there, clear as day. And that's what makes it unsettling. The deeper the error, the more believable it feels. Level 20, Jif or Jiffy peanut butter. Picture yourself as a child, reaching into the pantry for a jar of peanut butter. Do you remember seeing the label Jiffy? If so, you're not alone. Thousands recall the popular peanut butter brand as Jiffy, but it's never been that. It's Jif. Some say they're simply conflating it with Skippy, another peanut butter brand, but others insist Jiffy was real, distinct and existing side by side with Jif and Skippy. Parents, kids, even grocery store workers remember seeing the Jiffy label. Some even claim to recall advertising jingles that used the name. But if you go looking for proof, you'll find none. No logos, no ads, no legal documentation of a name change. It's as if Jiffy never existed. Could this be a corporate branding trick lost to time, or another case of a glitch in the record of reality? It seems absurd. A peanut butter jar. And yet, it's this very absurdity that makes it so haunting. Because if we can remember an entire brand that never was, then how many other memories do we carry that don't belong to this world? Level 21, the Lindbergh baby was found. The story of the Lindbergh baby is often cited as one of the great unsolved mysteries in American history. In many people's minds, the child of famous aviator Charles Lindbergh was kidnapped and never found, becoming the tragic subject of books, documentaries, and even conspiracy theories. But here's the twist: the Lindbergh baby was found, and not recently. His body was discovered in 1932, just months after the kidnapping. An autopsy was performed. A man was arrested, tried, and executed for the crime. It was a huge media event. Yet thousands of people remember learning that the case was never solved and that the baby vanished without a trace. Why does this misconception persist so strongly? Some say it's due to pop culture, where the unsolved mystery version makes for better storytelling, but others are unsettled by how many people seem to share the same alternate memory. Could it be that in a different version of history, the child was never found, that we're holding onto a record from a parallel outcome? It's a chilling thought that a case involving life and death could shift in our minds so dramatically. And if that can happen, what else might history have quietly rewritten? Level 22, the Tank Man video no longer ends the same way. Most people remember the powerful image from the Tiananmen Square protests. A lone man stands defiantly in front of a line of tanks. He blocks their path, refusing to move. But ask around, and you'll hear something strange. Many remember that he was run over, that the tank rolled forward, crushing him. Yet in every official version of the footage, the man is never harmed. The tanks stop. He climbs onto the tank at one point, speaks to the crew, and is eventually pulled away by onlookers. This memory discrepancy is deeply unsettling. Some individuals claim to have seen the run-over version broadcast live or in old documentaries. Others say the footage changed, or that it's simply no longer the version they remember. Was it a misinterpretation of a dramatic moment, inflated by years of rumor, or is this a Mandela Effect in action, a rewriting of one of the most iconic moments in 20th century history? It forces us to ask, if something as historically documented as Tiananmen Square can be remembered so differently, then is memory itself subject to revision, or are we living in the edited version? Level 23, the position of the human heart. You were probably taught in school that the human heart is on the left side of your chest. Maybe you even instinctively place your hand there during the national anthem. But if you look up modern anatomical charts, you'll notice something strange. The heart is not on the left. It's almost in the center. More specifically, it's behind the sternum, with a slight leftward tilt. But it's certainly not as far to the left as many remember being taught. Doctors, nurses, teachers, even anatomy professors have reported being surprised by this. They're not mistaking it for the feeling of a heartbeat. They're talking about actual placement. Some even remember operating on it or teaching it as being clearly left of center. Why the shift? Is it a case of simplified educational models skewing perception? Possibly. But it's also led many to suspect this as a Mandela Effect example, where physical reality itself has changed. That maybe, just maybe, the inner architecture of the human body has been quietly adjusted. If our own biology isn't immune to rewriting, then nothing is sacred, not even our beating hearts. Level 24, Interview with a Vampire, or the Vampire. This one has frustrated movie fans for years. You probably remember the title of the 1994 film starring Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise as Interview with a Vampire. That's what most people say. That's what they remember seeing on posters, DVD cases, even in theater marquees. But in this timeline, the official title is Interview with the Vampire, the not a. It's a tiny difference, but it's jarring for those who remember otherwise. Some even claim to still have old VHS tapes or merch with a vampire printed clearly on the label, only to find that those items have either vanished or now reflect the current version. The explanation offered by skeptics is that a vampire sounds more natural in English, so our brains substituted it over time. But is that all it is? Or are we looking at a case of cultural memory diverging from recorded fact? Titles should be the most stable part of a film's identity, but here, the smallest word change causes the largest sense of unease. It's not just about a vampire, it's about which reality you remember watching it in. Level 25, the number of U.S. states. Here's a strange one that comes up more than you'd expect. Some people distinctly remember being taught that the United States has 51 or even 52 states, not 50. They cite school lessons, trivia games, and even hearing it repeated in media. Some believe they count. Puerto Rico or Washington, D.C. as full-fledged states. Others claim they remember maps showing 51. It's not just a one-off error. people remember being corrected for saying 50 and told the number was higher. Of course, officially, there are 50 states, always have been. That fact is indisputable, but the persistence of the 5152 memory, especially among those who are otherwise precise, is puzzling. Could this be a widespread educational error? Possibly. Or could it be another Mandela effect, one where the collective memory of an extra state lingers from a version of history where statehood looked a little different? If borders, governance, and basic geography aren't immune to memory distortion, then the foundation of how we navigate the world might not be either. It's as if the map of reality was redrawn, but some of us still remember the old layout. Level 26, The Thinker Statue, Hand Placement. The Thinker by Auguste Rodin is one of the most recognizable sculptures in the world. You probably remember it. A muscular man, seated, leaning forward, his fist resting on his forehead in a pose of deep contemplation. But if you look at the actual statue, something is off. In many versions, including the original, the fist is under the chin, not the forehead. This seemingly small difference has caused enormous confusion. People recall mimicking the statue's pose in school, museums, or parodies, and placing their hand on their forehead. Some insist they've even seen versions with the hand higher up. Are there multiple casts with slight variations? Possibly, but most official reproductions, even from Rodin's own molds, show the hand positioned under the chin. Why would so many people, across generations and cultures, vividly remember it differently? This Mandela effect cuts deep because it plays with muscle memory. It's not just something you saw, but something you did. If your body recalls a different reality, when your eyes now contradict, how do you reconcile that? The thinker's pose was meant to evoke introspection. Now it also evokes a subtle panic. What else are we remembering wrong? Level 27, The Location of Sri Lanka. Most people recall Sri Lanka as being directly south of India, a small island at the bottom tip of the subcontinent. That's how it appeared in countless school maps, travel guides, and geography books. But if you look at a map today, you'll notice something strange. Sri Lanka is now southeast of India, off to the side. It's a subtle shift, but one that many people swear never existed before. Travelers, teachers, and even pilots have expressed confusion. Some say they remember flying south from India, not southeast. Others mention maps from their childhood clearly showing Sri Lanka underneath, not offset. Could this be a simple case of cartographic distortion or projection differences on certain map types? Possibly, but others believe it's something far more profound, a slight repositioning of geography itself. A glitch in Earth's layout that we've only noticed because we've been here long enough to spot the differences. If continents and countries can quietly shift, what else might be on the move? And what does it mean for the permanence of the physical world if the ground beneath us is, even subtly, negotiable? Level 28, Fruit Loops Spelling. The colorful, sugary cereal has been a childhood staple for decades. Most people assume it's spelled Fruit Loops because, of course, it's fruit-flavored, but check the box today and you'll see it's spelled Fruit Loops. That's not a typo, that's the brand. Here's the odd part, many people clearly remember it as fruit. They say they used to eat it, draw it in class, or even see commercials with the traditional spelling. Some parents claim to have corrected their kids for spelling it fruit, only to discover the boxes now show that version. It's not a new change, it's always been spelled fruit. So what happened? The explanation is that fruit was a marketing twist meant to sidestep regulations, since there's no real fruit in the cereal. But the volume and intensity of false memories suggest more than just a marketing quirk. People don't just misremember it, they insist they saw the other spelling with their own eyes. This Mandela effect turns breakfast into a battleground between memory and proof. And when even your cereal starts to lie to you, what's left that you can trust? Level 29, Mona Lisa's smile. Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa has always been famous for her mysterious expression, sometimes smiling, sometimes not, depending on your perspective. But something strange has been happening lately. People swear that her smile is more pronounced than they remember. Some say they remember her as stoic, nearly emotionless. Others recall her expression being so subtle it barely registered. Now they see a much clearer, almost amused smile. It's led many to believe the painting itself has changed. Experts claim nothing has been altered. The smile, they say, was always like this. It just depends on lighting, color balance, or how you interpret the image. But to those experiencing this Mandela effect, that answer rings hollow. They feel sure the smile was more neutral, more haunting. Now it feels warmer, more human. Could it be that subtle changes in high-resolution scans or restorations have altered perception? Or is this an example of a cultural artifact that's somehow evolved or been edited? When even one of the world's most famous artworks seems to be shifting before our eyes, it begs a terrifying question. If reality can be repainted without our permission, what else might be morphing quietly in the background? Level 30, The Silence of the Lambs. Hello, Clarice. Hello, Clarice. It's the chilling line that defined Hannibal Lecter in The Silence of the Lambs. It's been parodied in film. MS TV shows, memes, you name it. Anthony Hopkins' delivery is iconic, except it never happened. In the actual film, Lecter never says, "Hello, Clarice," not once. When Clarice Starling first visits him, he says, "Good morning." That's it. Fans are stunned when they rewatch the scene. They search for the line, convinced they'll find it, but it's not there, not in the theatrical version, not in the extended editions, not anywhere. Still, people remember it, vividly. Some theorize that pop culture parodies, like The Cable Guy or animated shows, planted the phrase so deeply in our minds that we backfilled it into the original. Others aren't convinced. They argue that this is yet another instance of a quote changing after it was cemented in public memory. It's not just a movie line, it's a marker of how our recollections can feel so real, so detailed, yet fail us completely when tested. And it raises a disturbing question. If our most iconic phrases are unstable, then what else in our cultural memory might be quietly falling apart? Level 31, The Evil Queen's Crown, Snow White. In Disney's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the evil queen is a character burned into memory. Her sharp features, regal posture, and distinctive crown define her villainous image. But there's a specific detail many people can't agree on: the shape of her crown. Some remember it as golden, tall, and pointed, almost like Maleficent's headpiece. Others recall a flatter, darker crown with a velvet lining. What's unsettling is that people are certain they remember drawing her in art class or seeing Halloween costumes with the different version. Watch the movie today and the crown looks modest. A black hood with a small golden peak at the front, nothing tall or elaborate. And yet, entire forums are filled with people who remember something completely different. It's not about forgetting, it's about remembering too well, something that apparently never was. Why do our minds insert such vivid, specific details into a character we've seen countless times? Is this memory distortion, or evidence of some subtle design change in our reality, an aesthetic shift in a shared dream that's slowly being rewritten? Level 32, Mr. Rogers. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. If you grew up watching Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, you probably remember the opening song. He'd walk in, change his shoes, put on a sweater, and sing, "It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood." Except go back and listen to it now. In this reality, he sings, "It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood," not the this. This small change causes a surprisingly visceral reaction. People feel like their childhood has been edited. Some even report singing the original version in school performances or using it as a mantra of comfort. But this neighborhood feels off, less universal, less warm. Why would we all mishear something so central to a beloved ritual? Audio misperception, possibly, but many swear that older tapes used to say the, and they remember noticing the change. If something is innocent and consistent as Mr. Rogers' greeting can shift without warning, it's no longer just a song, it's a seismic tremor in memory, and it makes us wonder, what else changed when we weren't paying attention? Level 33, the Henry VIII turkey leg portrait. There's a strange historical image many people recall, a portrait of King Henry VIII holding a large turkey leg, mid-bite, with a smug expression. It's been parodied endlessly, used in cartoons, commercials, and comedy skits. The image is so iconic that people assume it must exist. Except it doesn't. No official portrait, painting, or drawing of Henry VIII shows him holding a turkey leg. They all depict him in regal poses, hands on hips or holding gloves or swords. The turkey leg, nowhere to be found. So why do so many of us remember it? Some say it's because the idea of a gluttonous king fit his legend so perfectly that pop culture created the visual. Others think it was a deliberate parody that got mistaken for fact. But again, Mandela Effect enthusiasts argue differently. They insist the painting was real, that they saw it in history books, museums, or encyclopedias as children. This one haunts us because it plays with visual certainty. We don't just think we saw it, we did see it, somewhere, sometime. And if it's gone now, what else can vanish from the record without explanation? Level 34. The Challenger explosion, date confusion. The Challenger disaster is one of those tragic, historic moments that left a mark on everyone who lived through it. It happened on January 28, 1986, or at least, that's the official date. But there are people who clearly remember it happening in 1984 or 1985. Some insist they watched it live in a different grade than their classmates recall. Others say they remember the news coverage happening while they were in middle school, only to find out they were in high school during the actual event. The variations are minor, but the confidence is intense. Are we just misplacing a date in a traumatic memory? That would make sense. But this Mandela effect touches something deeper, time itself. Why would so many people misdate the same national tragedy by exactly a year? Is it a case of time warping in the collective memory, or did the event somehow move in time? What if we didn't just forget when it happened, but remembered when it used to? Level 35, the missing Bible verse, the lion shall lie down with the lamb. If you've ever quoted the Bible or heard someone quote it, you've probably heard the phrase, the lion shall lie down with the lamb. It symbolizes peace, innocence, and divine protection. It's been used in sermons, literature, artwork, and everyday conversation. But search the Bible today, and that phrase doesn't exist. The verse in question, Isaiah 11:6, actually says, the wolf shall dwell with the lamb, not lion, wolf. This revelation has shocked lifelong churchgoers, theologians, and ministers. Some claim to have memorized the lion version in Sunday school or read it aloud from older Bibles. Others recall stained glass windows or paintings depicting a lion and a lamb, imagery that seems inconsistent with the current wording. Could this be a simple misquote passed down over time, or are we dealing with something more metaphysical, like Scripture itself being revised by forces beyond us? When holy texts start changing, we're no longer talking about forgotten candy names or altered logos. We're talking about the rewriting of spiritual foundations and whether memory might be more sacred than the printed page. Level 36, the moon looks different now. Some people have started reporting something eerie, that the moon itself doesn't look the same as it used to. They remember a different surface pattern, more symmetrical craters, a man in the moon face that's now warped or unrecognizable. Astronomy hasn't changed. The moon hasn't moved significantly. And yet, these individuals swear the moon they see today is not the moon of their childhood. There are rational explanations, of course, atmospheric distortion, light pollution, or even better telescopic detail. But others argue that it's something stranger, that we've shifted into a reality with a different lunar topography. It sounds ridiculous until you look up one night and realize something feels off, like the moon is watching with new eyes, like it's part of this timeline, but you are. Level 37, Kit Kat commercial jingle that never existed. Give me a break, break me off a piece of that Kit Kat bar. You probably sang along just reading that. The Kit Kat jingle is burned into the minds of millions, but there's a lesser-remembered second verse that some people insist existed, something about crunchy, chocolatey delight or layered wafers in every bite. Search for it, you won't find it. There's no extended version, no official recording, just endless posts from people who remember singing it or even acting it out in school. Where did this extra verse go? Did we all hallucinate it together? Or did it once exist in a version of the commercial that has since been erased? Level 38, the Statue of Liberty, location confusion. Ask someone where the Statue of Liberty is located, and they'll likely say, Liberty Island, and they'd be correct, but a surprising number of people remember it being on Ellis Island. Some say they remember visiting the statue and seeing it listed on Ellis Island brochures. Others recall trivia games or textbooks stating that Ellis Island is where Lady Liberty stood, but now that's simply not the case. Could this be a conflation of two closely related places? Possibly, but the depth and conviction of the false memory go beyond confusion. It feels like a reassignment of history. Even stranger, there are reports of people recalling photos where the statue wasn't on either island, but in a different position entirely. What's real, and how do you prove your memory is more than a dream? Levels 39, Luke, I am your father. One of the most iconic lines in movie history, Darth Vader, looming in shadow, reveals the truth to Luke Skywalker, Luke, I am your father. Except that's not what he says. The actual line is, no, I am your father. It's a subtle change, but it breaks the rhythm and emotional weight many remember. Why would everyone get it wrong? Actors, fans, comedians, merchandise, for decades. Could it be that the line did change, that it was Luke in some other version, some other reality, where the narrative flowed as we all recall? When a line that defines a generation of cinema evaporates from the record, what else might be drifting into oblivion? Level 40, the human skull's missing hole. Skull anatomy has shifted. At least, that's what many people believe. In older anatomy models, the human skull had a solid cavity behind the eyes, and the nasal cavity was relatively straightforward. But modern diagrams show odd bone structures, unexpected holes, and sponge-like sections many people don't recall. Doctors and med students have raised concerns about these changes, not just confusion, but shock. Some say they remember handling skulls in class that didn't look like today's models. Could it be anatomical evolution, new scientific understanding, or are we witnessing physical proof of a shift where even our bones are being restructured by a force we can't see? It's one thing when cereal spells change, but when your own skull becomes unfamiliar, the Mandela effect stops being theory and and starts becoming reality. Level 41, the Great Wall of India. Everyone knows about the Great Wall of China, stretching thousands of miles across the landscape. But what if you learned there's also a Great Wall in India? Many people are shocked to discover that the Kumbhalgarh Fort in Rajasthan has a wall that stretches over 22 miles, making it the second longest continuous wall in the world, right after the Great Wall of China. Yet for many, this was never in textbooks, maps, or documentaries. Some feel this is simply a case of underreported history, but Mandela Effect believers feel otherwise. If such a massive, record-breaking structure existed this whole time, why are so many people discovering it only now? How could such a vast architectural feat exist without ever appearing in school curricula or global awareness? Are we learning something new or remembering something wrong? Or did this structure appear here, in this version of Earth, while we were busy watching something else? Level 42, the Monopoly guy's eyebrows. We already questioned his monocle, but here's another unsettling detail. People remember the Monopoly man having thick, dramatic eyebrows, angry, arched, expressive. Now his face is bare, smooth forehead, no eyebrows. You might chalk it up to artistic minimalism, but many remember seeing him furrow his brows in animated ads or stylized boxes. Eyebrows are such a basic feature that their absence feels wrong. Some even recall mimicking his expression in costume and drawing them on. Are we just blending him with Mr. Peanut again? Or is this another example of a once familiar character gradually losing parts of himself, edited, erased, streamlined, until we question if he was ever real at all? Level 43, the Space Shuttle Challenger's name. We've already explored the confusion around the Challenger explosion's date, but here's another twist. Some people remember the shuttle being called Columbia or Discovery, and not Challenger at all. While both Columbia and Discovery were real NASA space shuttles, they were different missions. And yet, the names are often mixed up in people's memories when recounting the 1986 tragedy. Some even describe watching the news and seeing the Columbia explode, years before that disaster actually occurred in 2003. Why do so many confuse these names and these disasters? This Mandela effect creates a temporal blur, overlapping tragedies, misaligned timelines, fractured memories. It makes us wonder whether some of us are remembering events from a version of history where those names were switched. Level 44, Run, You Fools. In the Fellowship of the Ring, as Gandalf hangs from the edge of the bridge in Moria, he looks up at the Fellowship and delivers a dramatic command. Run, you fools. Except he doesn't. He says, fly, you fools. This revelation stuns fans who could swear they heard run. They acted it out in school plays, quoted it to each other, and remember it clearly. Now, watching the scene again feels off. Fly doesn't carry the same tone. It sounds incorrect. Some claim the word fly was always intended metaphorically, meaning flee. Others believe it hints at Gandalf's future resurrection, but none of that explains why millions remember a completely different word. Unless, of course, we're quoting the version we used to have, in a timeline where Gandalf gave a different command before falling into shadow. Level 45, Risky Business, the Sunglasses Scene. The most iconic scene in Risky Business is easy to picture. Tom Cruise sliding across the floor in socks, a button-down shirt, and Ray-Ban sunglasses. You've seen the costume at Halloween parties. Maybe you even dressed up that way. But here's the weird part. In the original scene, he's not wearing sunglasses. He's wearing just the shirt and socks. The sunglasses only appear later in the film, and yet thousands of people remember the shades being part of that moment. Some even recall commercials, parodies, and posters that include them. Is it simply that the sunglasses became part of the character's overall aesthetic and bled into the memory of that specific moment? Or is this another Mandela effect, where a cultural image splintered from its original reality and created a shared memory of something that never happened? Level 46, E.T. Phone Home, was different. Everyone knows the iconic phrase from E.T. the Extraterrestrial, E.T. Phone Home. It's so ingrained in culture, it barely needs context. But what if the phrase wasn't originally that? Some people recall E.T. saying, "E.T. home phone" first before correcting himself. And when they rewatch the film now, they do see this. He stumbles and says the wrong version, then corrects it to phone home. The Mandela effect here is that the final version is wrong. It's that many remember the first, broken version never happening at all. In their memories, E.T. only ever said the smooth, iconic version. No correction, no fumbling. So which is correct? Is this a case of forgotten dialogue, or did the film change subtly to show a more vulnerable alien than we remembered? Either way, it shifts our nostalgia into something less certain, less fixed. Level 47, the placement of North and South Korea. Take a moment, picture a map of Asia. Where are North and South Korea in relation to China? Many people visualize them directly below China, with North Korea bordering it on the southeastern edge. But pull up a modern map, and you might feel disoriented. North Korea borders China more centrally, and both Koreas sit farther east than many recall. It's a subtle shift, but disturbing to those who pride themselves on geographic memory. Some report checking old atlases and being shocked. Others swear they were taught something different in school. Are we just misremembering, or has the entire position of a country quietly shifted a few hundred miles, just enough to go unnoticed unless you're looking? Level 48, I Can See Clearly Now, the lyrics. You likely know the chorus of Johnny Nash's famous song, "I Can See Clearly Now, the Rain Is Gone," but some people remember an alternate version, "I Can See Clearly Now, the Pain Is Gone." It's not a parody. They're convinced they heard that version on the radio, in movies, or even live performances, and it changes the song completely, from a weather metaphor to something deeply emotional. Is it a case of lyrical reinterpretation, or did a different version of the song once exist before being replaced by the one we now hear everywhere? When even music shifts beneath our feet, it's not just nostalgia that's at risk, it's our emotional reality. Level 49, Smokey Bear or Smokey the Bear. Most of us were taught the wildfire prevention mascot's name as Smokey the Bear. We sang the jingle, saw the posters, learned the rhyme, but in reality his name is, and always has been, Smokey Bear. It's not a nickname, it's his official name, and yet people feel genuinely disturbed by this. Teachers, park rangers, and even old cartoons used Smokey the Bear. So where did the come from, and why do we remember it so strongly? Some argue it was added for rhythm in songs. Others think we've just collectively inserted it because it sounds right. But to many, this is yet another example of our world being slightly out of phase with the one we thought we were raised in. Level 50, the end of Shazam. There's a persistent rumor that actor Sinbad starred in a 1990s movie called Shazam, where he played a goofy, well-meaning genie. But here's the problem, that movie doesn't exist. What does exist is a 1996 movie called Kazam, starring Shaquille O'Neal. Sinbad denies ever playing such a role. No record of Shazam has ever been found, and yet people remember the plot, scenes, VHS covers, even Sinbad's costume. Why is this one so specific, so detailed? Some even claim it aired during a specific weekend marathon on a cable channel in the 90s, and yet no tapes, no stills, no credits exist. Is it mass memory blending, or did a low-budget film once exist in a timeline that no longer does? The Shazam Mandela Effect is one of the most famous examples of missing media reality slips. And if we can all remember a movie that never existed, then we must ask, what's stronger, proof or memory? Level 51, Mona Lisa has eyebrows. One of the most talked about oddities of Da Vinci's Mona Lisa is her apparent lack of eyebrows. For centuries, art historians explained this absence as a result of overcleaning or the fashion of the time, but many people recall seeing distinct, painted eyebrows on her in the past. What's more disorienting, some individuals claim to have seen the eyebrows return, saying that modern high-resolution images or museum visits show faint, but visible, brows. Others say the opposite, that the eyebrows used to be there but are now mysteriously gone again. It's not just a question of art restoration. It's a question of whether one of the most analyzed paintings in history is changing. Eyebrows are such a simple detail, yet they anchor facial expression. Their absence or appearance has become a powerful symbol for those convinced that this reality is being subtly redrawn, one stroke at a time. Level 52, floppy disk icon doesn't make sense. The floppy disk icon is used universally to represent save. But here's a chilling observation. Millions of people under a certain age have no idea what it is. More than that, some claim they don't remember ever using or seeing a real floppy disk in life, yet they recognize the icon instinctively. It's as if the image came first and the real-world object followed. Some Mandela Effect observers ask, what if the floppy disk, while real in some timelines, was never as widespread in others? Or worse, what if the object is a retroactive insert meant to justify the digital symbol? If your mind accepted the icon without needing the object, what else could have been fabricated just to support the illusion? Level 53, Freddy Krueger's sweater colors. In your memory, what colors are Freddy Krueger's infamous striped sweater? Most people say red and black. That's how he's drawn in fan art, costumes, Halloween masks, and pop culture. But in the films, his sweater is actually red and green. This isn't new, it's always been red and green, and yet the black variation feels more true to many. It's how they remember the dream-haunting killer being marketed. Why is there such a clear divergence? Some say it's due to poor lighting in older TVs making green appear darker. Others believe it's a sign of a version of the character that's since been rewritten, one that wore red and black in a different timeline, a different Freddy from a different dream. Level 54, Chick-fil-A spelling shifts. What's the correct spelling of the famous fast food chain? Many insist it's Chick-fil-A, like chic or stylish. Others remember Chick-fil-A, short and quirky. But the official name is, and always has been, Chick-fil-A. This Mandela effect is particularly sticky because branding is so visual and repetitive. People see the logo all the time, yet so many claim it looks different now. They remember bumper stickers, gift cards, signs, none of which looked like the current version. Is it just bad memory, or did the name evolve, with the original spellings lost in a branding update that reality never announced? When even your lunch starts lying to you, where do you turn? Level 55, Hitler's eye color. Adolf Hitler is widely remembered as having blue eyes, often described in biographies, school textbooks, and even propaganda from the time. But some recent sources now describe him as having dark gray or brown eyes. The change seems subtle, but for a figure so historically scrutinized, shouldn't there be agreement? Eyewitness accounts and historic images conflict with modern databases. Some people claim to remember being taught about his icy blue gaze. Others feel this new version has always been the case. This Mandela effect isn't about misremembering a cereal box. It's about rewriting history at the most granular, disturbing level. If we can no longer agree on the details of our past monsters, how stable is our collective memory of anything? Level 56, the location of the Earth in the Milky Way. Astronomy books used to teach that Earth was located near the edge of the Milky Way galaxy, toward one of the spiral arms. But modern science places us much closer to the center, within the Orion Spur, a minor arm between two major ones. This update feels off to many. They distinctly remember school diagrams placing us at the very edge of the galaxy. So what happened? Was it a discovery, a reclassification, or a cosmic shift? Some argue that the universe itself hasn't changed, but our version of it has. Maybe we didn't move, but our understanding did, in ways that feel less like science and more like the fabric of the cosmos snapping into a new alignment. Level 57, the Ford logo swirl. Look at the Ford logo, the cursive script inside an oval. Now focus on the F. You'll notice a little loop or swirl in the middle bar of the letter. This detail has startled many. They don't remember that swirl being there at all. It looks ornate, awkward, even out of place. Yet Ford historians confirm it has always been part of the logo, dating back over a century. So why do so many people claim to have seen the logo without it? This Mandela effect is deeply visual. Car owners, mechanics, auto enthusiasts all say they've looked at the logo their whole lives and never saw that swirl until recently. Is it brand blindness, or did the symbol of American industry quietly grow a new flourish in a timeline where it never had one before? Level 58, JCPenney or JCPenney. The famous department store is spelled JCPenney with an extra E. Yet many people remember it as JCPenney, a cleaner, simpler version. Some even say they've worked there and wrote the name differently on paperwork. The current spelling feels off, too long, unfamiliar. Branding rarely changes without fanfare. And this change, if it was one, came without a trace. Is it just poor spelling, or has a core piece of American retail culture been subtly rewritten? What if the receipts used to say something else, and they don't anymore? Level 59, there was a N in dilemma. A strange linguistic Mandela effect has been debated online for years. Many people remember the word dilemma being spelled dilemma with an N. There's no record of it ever being spelled that way, but forums are filled with stories of spelling tests, teachers correcting them, even seeing it printed in books. The dilemma memory is so widespread that it's become a case study in how collective false memories operate, but others aren't convinced it's false. They remember knowing the difference. They remember seeing it. So did we all just imagine the N, or did our vocabulary slip through a crack in the linguistic timeline? Level 60, fruit of the loom redux, the cornucopia returns. Back in level 12, we examined the infamous missing cornucopia from the fruit of the loom logo. Now some people report seeing it return, but only in old clothing, vintage catalogs, or memory, not online, not in archives. It's as if the cornucopia exists in a ghost dimension, present only in certain objects, never in pixels. Some have dug through attics or thrift stores to prove its existence, only to find the cornucopia missing again upon a second glance. This Mandela effect seems to fluctuate. It flickers. It refuses to stay consistent, and that's what makes it so disturbing. If our past isn't stable and our present keeps adjusting, where are we really standing? And how far from the truth have we drifted? Level 61, the Statue of Liberty's torch access. Many tourists recall being told that the public could no longer access the Statue of Liberty's crown, but that the torch had been closed off for decades due to structural damage from World War I. That much is true. However, here's where the Mandela effect begins. Some people remember being in the torch. Not hearing about it, not reading it, actually climbing into it. There are accounts of visitors recalling spiral staircases leading up, small viewing windows, even vertigo-inducing memories of looking out across New York Harbor from the torch itself. But according to all official records, access to the torch has been closed since 1916, after a German sabotage explosion on nearby Black Tom Island damaged the arm. That means no living person today should have had that experience. And yet they do. People claim they remember photographs taken from up there. Some recall seeing the torch platform in old brochures, museum guides, or travel diaries. But when they go looking, those artifacts are gone or they've changed. How could someone remember visiting a place they supposedly never had access to? Could it be confused memories from the crown? Or does this point to something far stranger, that these individuals once lived in a timeline where torch access was real? Level 62, the Bic lighter flame adjuster. Many people remember the iconic Bic lighter, the standard disposable plastic lighter with a metal hood and ignition wheel. But there's a strange and consistent memory some users report. They recall the lighter having a small metal flame adjuster that you could slide up or down to make the flame higher or lower. Here's the issue. Bic lighters sold in most markets have never included a manual flame adjustment feature. They're set to a fixed flame height for safety and consistency. Despite this, countless people vividly remember adjusting the flame, often to create a towering flicker during bonfire nights or for lighting grills. Some say they had to be careful not to turn it up too high or risk burning themselves. Could they be confusing Bic with other brands? Possibly. Some off-brand lighters do have adjusters, but the memory is strangely brand-specific. People are convinced it was on Bic, and only later was the feature removed. Except it was. So where did that detail come from? Is it collective memory drift, or did we used to live in a world where the Bic lighter burned just a little brighter, because we made it that way? Level 63, Neil Armstrong's death date confusion. Neil Armstrong, the first man to walk on the moon, passed away in 2012. The fact is documented and widely reported, but for a surprising number of people, that year doesn't feel right. Many distinctly recall hearing about his death in the 1990s or early 2000s. Some even mention classroom memorials or televised tributes long before 2012. This isn't just foggy memory. These individuals remember specific contexts, like the exact grade they were in, how it was reported in the news, or conversations that followed. When they learn that Armstrong died in 2012, there's genuine confusion. Some even feel like the newer timeline is wrong, as though a historical record had been subtly corrected. Why the discrepancy? A few suggest people are confusing Neil Armstrong with other astronauts or public figures. That's plausible. But for others, it feels like more than that. It feels like a tangible rewrite of history, like Armstrong's death moved. The implications are disturbing. If we can remember someone dying, vividly, before they actually did, what does that say about the chronology of our reality? And more importantly, what does it mean if our timeline was altered and we're the only ones who noticed? Level 64, the Moonraker braces that vanished. In the 1979 James Bond film Moonraker, There's a scene where the henchman Jaws, known for his metal teeth, meets a nerdy blonde girl named Dolly. He smiles, she smiles, and the implication is clear. They're a perfect match. The audience laughs because she has braces, just like his metal mouth. Except now, she doesn't. Rewatch the scene and Dolly is brace-free. The iconic punchline, the visual cue everyone remembers, is gone, but it doesn't make sense. The entire emotional beat of the scene hinges on the idea that her braces mirror his grill. Without them, the moment falls flat, and yet no version of the movie shows her with braces anymore. How can this be? Fans are adamant. They remember that scene vividly, right down to the glint of her braces. Some even say they laughed aloud in theaters because of it, but today it's as if the dental hardware was never there. Was it a costume oversight retroactively corrected, a deleted version that was lost, or did the braces disappear along with the version of the film and the world you once knew? This is not just a change in a movie prop, it's a deletion from memory itself. Level 65, New Zealand was farther south. If you grew up studying maps, you might remember New Zealand being located farther south and almost directly below Australia. But on today's globe, it's been nudged noticeably to the southeast, resting off the lower right corner of Australia's landmass. This Mandela effect is particularly powerful because it challenges our internal geography, something many of us rely on daily without question. People who grew up in the Southern Hemisphere are especially disturbed by the shift. They remember tracing its position in school, seeing it on globes, or flying along routes that no longer align with their memories. Some point to map projections and distortions, but this doesn't explain the directional repositioning so many people report. It's not just size or scale, it's location. You can move a country on a map, but can you move it in the world? Perhaps the planet didn't change, but your access point to it did. If an entire nation can subtly slide across the ocean, and few notice, what else might be drifting quietly out of place? Level 66, Life is But a Dream lyric switch. The classic lullaby, Row, row, row your boat, is remembered by virtually everyone. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. But here, where it gets weird, the ending lyric. Most people remember, life is but a dream. However, some claim it used to be, life's just like a dream. This isn't a vague memory. Some individuals say they sang life's just like a dream in school performances. Others recall music books or nursery rhyme collections from the 70s, 80s, or early 90s that used the alternate line. They argue that just like made the metaphor clearer to young children, and only later was it shifted to the more poetic but ambiguous is but. There are even reports of people watching older TV episodes or cartoons featuring the just like version, only to rewatch them today and hear is but. Search lyrics databases or public domain archives now, and all versions reflect life is but a dream. So was it a simple variation that's been erased from history, a regional edit? Or are we remembering the way the world used to sing before someone quietly rewrote the final line? Level 67, the missing fingerprint pattern. Many people are surprised to learn that not all humans have unique fingerprints, a fact that contradicts what they were taught growing up. But an even stranger Mandela effect has emerged. Some individuals claim that a common fingerprint pattern has vanished altogether. They describe a distinct pattern, often called a loop with a central spiral, that supposedly appeared in old textbooks, forensic guides, or even on their own fingers. It was said to be a rare hybrid of a whorl and a loop, one that forensic science mentioned, but now seems to have disappeared from classification systems. Officially, fingerprint types are categorized into loops, whorls, and arches. No spiral loop hybrid is recognized, but people remember being taught otherwise, sometimes in criminal justice classes or biology lessons. Some even recall comparing their fingerprints to the spiral pattern during science fair projects or using ink kits. But today, there's no trace of that classification in modern fingerprint databases. Were these memories simple confusion, a childhood misinterpretation of loop variations? Or is it possible that one of humanity's biological identifiers has been quietly rewritten, leaving no prints behind? Level 68, Mickey Mouse's suspenders, gone without a trace. Mickey Mouse is one of the most recognizable characters in the world. Red shorts, white gloves, yellow shoes, and many say suspenders. But look at modern images, vintage cartoons, official merchandise, and you won't find them. Mickey Mouse has never worn suspenders in any official design, not in early black and white reels, not in Disneyland costumes, not in toys or branding. Still, people insist they remember him with red or black suspenders that matched his shorts. They recall toys with molded straps, early animations where the suspenders bounced when he danced, and even Halloween costumes that included them. Where did this detail come from? Some say it's a blending of characters, perhaps goofy or old-timey cartoons, but this theory doesn't explain the vividness and consistency of the memory across so many generations. For many, Mickey's suspenders were not an assumption, they were a feature. The Mandela effect here isn't just visual, it's emotional. Mickey Mouse is more than a cartoon, he's cultural bedrock. So when his appearance changes, it's not just your memory that shifts, it's your entire sense of nostalgia. And the scariest part, you can't unsee what's no longer there. Level 69, Pikachu's black-tipped tail. You remember Pikachu, the face of Pokémon, yellow fur, rosy cheeks, and a tail tipped in black, or was it? Because in every piece of official media, games, anime, trading cards, Pikachu's tail is fully yellow. The only black part is the tips of his ears. This Mandela effect has confused fans for years. Many remember the tail being dipped in black, like a lightning bolt outline. Some even claim they drew it that way for years, submitted fan art, or recall plush toys with the black tail tip. But those versions no longer exist. Pokémon Company merchandise, artwork, and game sprites all show the tail as solid yellow. There's no record of an official black-tipped tail. So where did the alternate memory come from? Some theorize that the visual similarity between the ears and tail caused a cognitive blend. Others suggest Raichu, Pikachu's evolved form, introduced the confusion. But those explanations feel insufficient to people who remember the black tip vividly. When the mascot of a generation can change without anyone noticing until after the shift, it raises a serious question. Is this just faulty memory, or is the character evolving outside our control? Level 70, the thinker's pose. What was he thinking? Auguste Rodin's The Thinker is one of the most iconic sculptures in the world. A man seated, elbow on knee, hand on chin, deep in thought. Or is he? Because now, if you observe official casts of the statue, you'll notice his hand is not on his forehead, but his chin. That's correct. He is not pressing his knuckles to his temple. Instead, he appears to be resting his chin gently on a clenched fist. Yet countless people remember the forehead version. Some say they posed that way in front of replicas at museums, matching the contemplative stance. Others claim old commercials, t-shirts, and cartoon references used to depict the hand-to-forehead pose. Even now, try mimicking the thinker without looking. Your hand might drift to your brow instead of your jaw. This Mandela effect hits hard because it involves bodily memory, not just seeing, but doing. Why would so many people embody a pose that apparently never existed? Are we mistaking a parody for the original? Or did something change, not in the sculpture, but in the memory of millions? The question lingers: what was he thinking? And more importantly, what are you forgetting? Level 71, Captain Crunch or Cap'n Crunch. One of the most popular cereals of all time is remembered fondly by generations as Captain Crunch. You likely sang the jingle, saw the commercials, or read it on boxes your entire childhood. But look again, it's not Captain, it's Cap'n Crunch. This abbreviation is the official name and always has been, according to Quaker Oats. And yet, countless people are stunned to discover this. They don't just recall the full word captain on the box, they remember seeing it. Some say they still own old boxes in attics or cabinets with the longer spelling, only to check and find Cap'n instead. Was it always informal and we just never noticed? Or did the name subtly change, leaving behind only phantom impressions in our memories? This isn't about cereal. It's about how something you read and touched hundreds of times can still mutate without explanation and leave you wondering what else you thought was permanent but never was. Level 72, Location of Panama Canal. Ask anyone to draw a mental map of the Panama Canal, and they'll probably visualize a waterway running east to west, cutting across Central America to connect the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. But here's a disorienting fact: the Panama Canal actually runs northwest to southeast. It doesn't just feel wrong, it looks wrong. When viewed on a modern map, the geography of Panama itself curves unexpectedly. People swear that they were taught in school that the canal ran straight across, westward. Many say they remember diagrams showing it this way, flat, intuitive, and direct. So what happened? Cartographic projection, incomplete education, or a shift in Earth's layout that we're only now noticing? This isn't about geography, it's about the foundational scaffolding of the world map. If the literal shape of the Earth is quietly changing, it forces a terrifying possibility. What if we've never really known where we are? Level 73, Volvo logo, the arrow emerges. The Volvo logo now features a circle with an upward arrow, commonly recognized as the ancient alchemical symbol for iron and often associated with masculinity. But here's the thing: many people don't remember that arrow at all. They recall a simple word mark, VOLVO, in a clean sans serif font, no symbol, no framing, nothing suggesting Mars or iron or anything symbolic at all. Some car owners even claim they've had Volvos with no such logo on the steering wheel, badge, or key fob. Yet now, all official branding includes the arrowed circle, and Volvo insists it always has. Was the symbol always there and simply ignored, or has a deeper symbolic layer been added to our world, one that rewrites not just design, but meaning? This isn't just about logo aesthetics. It's about symbols quietly entering your reality, whether you remember inviting them in or not. Level 74, NASA's Lost Planet posters. In the early 2000s, many space enthusiasts recall NASA releasing a series of educational posters, one for each planet in the solar system. These posters were often seen in school classrooms, libraries, or science centers, and each featured stylized artwork, planetary facts, and mission highlights. But now people claim that certain posters from that set no longer exist, especially ones for Uranus and Neptune. Some remember vivid artwork showing Neptune surrounded by stormy rings and blues, and Uranus displayed as tilted, with emphasis on its unique axis. But attempts to find those exact posters come up empty. NASA does currently offer downloadable planetary posters, but they don't match what many people remember. The color palettes are different, the layout is unfamiliar, and the design tone is more modern and minimalist. Teachers who used to hang the full set now say their collections are incomplete. Some even remember specific space facts or artwork styles that are nowhere to be found. So what happened to these posters? Were they unofficial editions, regional releases? Or is it possible that part of the visual record of our solar system, the way it was once presented to us, has simply disappeared? Level 75. Hello, is it me you're looking for? Missing music video scene. Lionel Richie's 1984 hit, Hello, is famous for its iconic line, Hello, is it me you're looking for? And its emotionally strange music video in which a blind student sculpts Richie's face. But some fans vividly remember a version of the video where Richie is shown watching her from behind a curtain or slowly turning around as she approaches, which is now nowhere to be found. The current music video features him following her silently, the clay sculpture reveal, and theatrical staging. But scenes that people swear were once in the video, including one where Richie dramatically whispers the line directly into the camera, are completely absent. What's odd is that these missing moments aren't vague. They're described in detail, with emotional weight. Some fans even recall parodies of the video that emphasized these scenes, further reinforcing their memory. But all available footage, including remastered versions and original TV broadcasts, no longer include them. Was it a collective false memory, or did we experience a version of the music video that has since been quietly edited or erased? If art can disappear from public memory, how long before emotion follows? Level 76. Stouffer's stove-top stuffing never existed. Many people vividly remember Stouffer's stove-top stuffing, a boxed side dish often served during holidays or quick family dinners. It was a staple in many homes. But it never existed. Today, stove-top stuffing is made by Kraft, and there's no record of Stouffer's ever producing it. Yet people insist they remember it. Not vaguely, but specifically, TV commercials, labels, even coupons with the Stouffer's brand. They recall the red box, the logo, the tagline. Some say they used to buy it regularly. So where did this memory come from? Did two brands blur into one, or did we once live in a timeline where Stouffer's did make the stuffing, and then history changed? This isn't just a product Mandela effect. It's an example of corporate reality drift, where entire brand histories are overwritten, leaving you questioning not just your meals, but your memories. Level 77, Cruella de Vil, not Cruella de Vil. In 101 Dalmatians, the villain is one of Disney's most memorable, Cruella de Vil. Her name plays off the word devil, of course, but many people recall it being spelled de Vil, as in a surname or a play on Cadillac de Vil. In fact, some swear they remember the movie's credits or VHS covers showing Cruella de Vil. Others recall merchandise and costumes with that spelling. But Disney insists it's always been de Vil, and all official records now match. Is it a case of our brains favoring more traditional surnames, or did the original spelling change along with her identity? This Mandela effect toys with names, and names have power. When the villain herself begins to change, it's not just fiction that's shifting, it's the archetypes we build our world around. Level 78, the world map, Africa has moved. Geography used to be stable, but many people are now reporting something disturbing. Africa's location on the world map has changed. They remember it being lower, farther south, and more isolated from Europe and the Middle East. Now, Africa is pushed closer to Europe, almost touching Saudi Arabia, with a tighter squeeze along the Mediterranean. Teachers, travelers, and geography buffs say this is not how they remember learning it. They cite old globes, wall maps, and classrooms that painted a different spatial story. So is it just projection distortion, or has an entire continent drifted, not just in space, but in memory? The Earth itself is our most trusted reference point. If that's been altered, even subtly, then the very concept of a fixed world begins to collapse. Level 79, your blood type was different. Some individuals report discovering something deeply unsettling during medical visits or blood drives. Their blood type is not what they were told earlier in life. It's not a minor confusion, it's people being told they were O-negative for decades, only to test as A-positive, or being told they're universal donors, only to later find their type is incompatible. Parents recount giving birth under one blood type and now being told it's changed. Some say their medical records reflect one thing, but current lab results say another. Could it be clerical errors, misdiagnoses? Possibly, but it's happening too frequently for comfort. Even more bizarre are people who say they still have physical records from years ago stating a different blood type than they're currently confirmed as. Some point to blood donation cards, health class test results, or military documents as proof, but when compared to today's tests, the data doesn't match. If your blood, your literal life fluid, can change across time, what does that say about the continuity of your physical body? What else inside you might no longer belong? Level 80, the missing star in the night sky. For stargazers, there's something disturbingly off. A bright star they remember no longer appears in the night sky. They can't name it. They don't know the coordinates, but they remember where it was east of Orion's belt, slightly off the equatorial plane, brighter than anything else in that area. And now it's gone. Some say it was a red-tinted star, others a blue-white blaze, and many claim they used to use it for telescope calibration or navigation. But no records exist of any such star in that position. They check star maps, planetarium software, even antique astronomy guides. Nothing. It was real to them, not imagined. They remember it like a familiar face in the dark, something they counted on. Some say they've checked every year, only to find a hole where something used to shine. Is it possible a star was declassified, or are these people remembering a sky from a different version of Earth? When celestial bodies begin to disappear, and no one can prove they were ever there, you're no longer just dealing with forgotten facts. You're dealing with a rewritten cosmos. Level 81, the missing moon landing tapes. When Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin first walked on the moon in 1969, the event was broadcast to millions. You'd think such a monumental achievement would be meticulously archived. But here's the Mandela Effect. NASA lost the original tapes of the moon landing. That's right, in 2006, NASA officially admitted that it had recorded over or misplaced the original, high-quality SSTV tapes. What remains are lower-resolution broadcast versions, transmitted through analog conversions. For many, this is unbelievable. People remember seeing crisp, clear footage in school documentaries or older TV specials. Some even claim they saw different angles or shots that no longer exist. So which is it? Were those memories just edited television dramatizations, or does this represent something more unsettling? When the most important piece of modern history is somehow missing, it invites suspicion. Were they destroyed to hide something, or did we once live in a version of reality where the footage was never lost? The fact that something so pivotal can simply disappear and be casually explained away raises deeper questions. Is history being revised, and if so, by who? Level 82, Smokey Bear's voice sounds raw. You may know the famous wildfire prevention slogan, "Only you can prevent forest fires." It's been delivered for decades by Smokey Bear in a gruff, serious tone. But here's where things get strange. Many people remember a deeper, more iconic voice, one that doesn't match any of the modern or archived versions available today. Some say the tone has changed, becoming softer, younger, or just not quite right. Others recall seeing animated commercials or PSAs with a different animation style, a different voice actor, or even a completely different slogan, "Only you can stop wildfires." While the latter is now used, the change feels more recent than official records suggest. Some say this is just a case of updated branding, but others insist they saw the new version back in the 90s, even though it allegedly didn't exist at that time. Was there an alternate set of commercials, or has Smokey's delivery been quietly dubbed into new tones while we weren't paying attention? When even a voice you trusted for years begins to sound like someone else, you start to wonder, what else might not be what it seems? Level 83, Mr. Rogers, Sweater Color Switch. Mr. Rogers was known for his calm demeanor and consistent habits. Every episode, he walked in, took off his jacket, and put on a sweater. Most remember that sweater as red, bright, iconic, unmistakable. But what if we told you it wasn't always red? In the earliest episodes, Mr. Rogers wore various colors: beige, green, blue, and even mustard yellow. The red sweater came later, and not as frequently as people recall. What's strange is how many people only remember the red. Some even say they had toys or dolls that depicted him exclusively in that shade. More disturbingly, some recall episodes they swear they watched where the sweater changed mid-scene, a detail they laughed at or remembered vividly. But rewatching now, those scenes are gone or never existed. It may seem trivial, but clothing is a powerful memory anchor. If something as repetitive and familiar as Mr. Rogers' wardrobe is being remembered wrong or worse, altered in some way, then maybe memory isn't about what you saw, but what you were meant to remember. When even cardigans aren't safe, what is? Level 84, the Beatles logo on the drumhead. The Beatles logo is instantly recognizable: bold, black text on Ringo's drumhead with a tall T in Beatles. Except many people remember a different version. They recall the logo as flat, with a standard T, no oversized crossbar, and a more narrow typeface. Some say they remember seeing vintage posters or documentaries with the alternate styling. Today, nearly all footage shows the tall T logo, said to have been used since the early 1960s. But fans and collectors insist they've seen different versions on authentic items, including rare footage or vinyl album sleeves. Could it be variations in early print runs, design evolution, or is this another example of a brand identity that was quietly replaced? When a band that defined modern music suddenly feels unfamiliar in its most basic visual element, it's no longer just a graphic discrepancy, it's a disturbance in cultural memory. And in a reality increasingly reliant on icons and logos, the question becomes, if a symbol can shift, what does that say about the sound? Level 85, a room in your childhood home never existed. Some people, often in adulthood, visit their childhood home or look through floor plans, photos, or real estate listings and discover something deeply unsettling. A room they remember clearly is gone. Not forgot, not imagined, fully remembered. The blue-painted reading room, the narrow hallway closet, the door at the end of the hall that they explored. As a child is nowhere to be found. Parents deny it ever existed. Old photos show no trace. Current owners say there's never been anything there. And yet the memory persists, not vague or dreamlike, clear. People remember furniture, smells, old toys they stored there. Some describe conversations, punishments, or hiding from storms in these spaces, but now it's as if the house has rearranged itself to exclude it. Was it a childhood fantasy mistaken as fact, a misinterpreted architectural change? Or did something real vanish, a small fragment of physical space quietly edited out of your past? This Mandela effect is terrifying because it's intimate, not a public symbol or shared event. It's your own home. And if space can disappear behind your bedroom door, what else has already slipped through the walls of memory? Level 86, the Great Fire of New York. Ask people to list major disasters in U.S. history, and they'll likely name the Great Chicago Fire, San Francisco earthquake, or Hurricane Katrina. But few, if any, remember the Great Fire of New York, which devastated Lower Manhattan in 1835, even though it was one of the most catastrophic urban fires in American history. This fire destroyed 17 city blocks, consumed over 600 buildings, and burned so brightly that ships at sea reportedly navigated by its light. It caused such widespread damage that parts of Wall Street had to be entirely rebuilt. Yet, unlike Chicago's fire or San Francisco's quake, it's barely mentioned in modern education. Here's the Mandela effect. People with strong ties to New York, lifelong residents, even historians, say they have no memory of learning about it. Some recall being told that Chicago had the most infamous American fire. Others remember there being only one major fire associated with U.S. urban history. And yet this fire happened. It's fully documented. You can read the newspapers from that week. So why has it vanished from cultural memory? When history's biggest blazes leave no impression, maybe it's not the fire we forgot, but the version of reality that contained it. Level 87, Human Rib Count Gender Myths. Ask someone how many ribs men and women have. You might hear a confident answer: women have more ribs than men. This belief stems from a biblical interpretation, the idea that Eve was made from Adam's rib. Many people grew up believing, or were outright taught in school, that men are born with one fewer rib than women. Some even say they remember seeing anatomical diagrams showing this. But medically and scientifically, that's incorrect. Both men and women have 24 ribs, 12 pairs, and always have. Yet this mistaken belief is so prevalent that it feels deeper than misinformation. It's not just a forgotten fact, it's something people recall learning as truth. Why would educational systems, parents, and even textbooks reinforce an incorrect detail? Could it be an outdated curriculum that persisted for too long? Or is it possible there was a version of our world where biology reflected story, where the myth was somehow made literal? This Mandela effect shows how easily scientific fact can blur when it collides with cultural narrative. And if your body isn't exempt from revision, what truly is? Level 88, North Pole Geography and the Missing Landmass. When people think of the North Pole, many imagine it as a frozen landmass, like Antarctica, but at the top of the world. In reality, the North Pole is not land at all. It's a constantly shifting sheet of ice floating over the Arctic Ocean. But for some, that contradicts everything they remember. They recall being shown maps with a visible landmass at the pole, or globes where the Arctic resembled a proper continent. This isn't a misunderstanding between Arctic and Antarctic. People specifically remember being taught the North Pole had solid ground. Some claim textbooks showed brown or gray shaded terrain. Others say they were taught it had indigenous populations or research bases on rock, not ice. Today, that idea is dismissed, but if it's always been ice, where did the landmass come from in so many memories? Could it be confusion with Greenland? Or Was there a version of Earth with polar terrain that's now been rewritten, erased, and replaced with drifting frost? And if a landmass can vanish, unacknowledged, from the top of the world, how solid is the ground beneath your feet? Level 89, the missing point of the Eiffel Tower. The Eiffel Tower is one of the most recognizable structures in the world, but some travelers claim something feels off when they see it now. Specifically, the top seems flatter or shorter than they remember. They recall an extremely pointed summit, perhaps sharper, taller, or adorned with more visible ornamentation. Others say that photos they took decades ago, the ones they pull from family albums, no longer match the skyline they see in modern pictures. Could this be due to construction updates? No, the tower has not been significantly altered in structure since the early 20th century. And yet the memory persists. Tourists say they remember walking up and seeing a taller spire. Others recall guides referencing a more needle-like peak. Some even feel that the silhouette against the Parisian sky has changed, subtly but definitively. When the shape of the most iconic structure in Europe begins to deviate from memory, it becomes more than a travel discrepancy. It becomes a warning. If landmarks are shifting, you may not just be visiting another city. You might be visiting another version of Earth. Level 90, the missing bombing of Black Tom Island. Ask most Americans if the U.S. was attacked on its soil before Pearl Harbor in 1941, and they'll say no. But here's the twist. In 1916, during World War I, German agents carried out a massive sabotage operation on Black Tom Island, a munitions depot in New Jersey. The explosion was so powerful that it damaged the Statue of Liberty, shattered windows in Times Square, and was felt as far away as Philadelphia. Here's where the Mandela Effect comes in. Almost no one remembers it. This wasn't a minor incident. It was a defining moment of early U.S. involvement in global conflict. And yet, most Americans, even history teachers, claim they were never taught about it. There are no widely viewed documentaries, no major textbook entries, and no mainstream remembrance ceremonies. Some even say they visited the Statue of Liberty and were never told the torch was closed due to that very explosion, only learning it years later through obscure sources. Why has such a major act of wartime terrorism been largely forgotten? Was it suppressed in historical records, overlooked due to later events, or are we dealing with a deeper anomaly, a case of history quietly rewriting itself, one explosion at a time? Level 91, the moon's craters are in the wrong places. For amateur astronomers and lifelong stargazers, the moon is a constant. But lately, something feels off, especially in the crater patterns. People are reporting that the familiar face of the moon, the man in the moon, or the large Mare Imbrium, the Sea of Rains, no longer looks the same. They remember craters being more centralized or clustered in different places. Some say prominent features are rotated or missing entirely. They pull out old telescope logs, photos, or drawings and feel disoriented. Nothing matches. NASA attributes this to improved optics or viewing angles, but many feel it's deeper, like the celestial map itself has shifted. Some even claim their childhood star charts no longer match the night sky. If the moon, a symbol of cosmic consistency, can subtly change in shape or orientation, then we must ask, is it the moon that changed or the Earth we're standing on? At this level, the Mandela Effect isn't about memory. It's about space itself bending quietly while we weren't looking. Level 92, the vanishing of the thinker replicas. We've discussed the thinker's changing pose, but now people report something even stranger. Replicas of the statue have disappeared or appear different than they remember. Some individuals claim to have visited museums, college campuses, or gardens with specific versions of the statue, only to return years later and find them gone, or replaced by versions with different hand placement, posture, or facial features. Photos they took seem altered. Plaques reference installation dates that don't line up. In a few cases, institutions insist the statue was never there. Could this be faulty memory, renovation, or did the thinker's very identity, replicated in hundreds of places, become unstable across timelines? It's as if Rodin's sculpture is no longer a fixed piece of art, but a barometer of reality, shifting slightly with each wave of divergence. If public monuments are no longer reliable markers of permanence, then what is? Level 93, the US dollar design has subtle differences. Have you ever looked closely at a $1 bill and thought something seemed off? Many people claim the layout of the US dollar has changed in small but alarming ways. Some say the spacing of the words "In God We Trust" has moved. Others remember the pyramid and eye on the back being more centered, or the eagle's talons holding different items. Some even recall different fonts or sharper contrasts between black and green ink. Of course, currency changes are documented, but not these. No official redesign matches the changes people remember. It's not that the bills were updated, it's that the old version no longer exists, even in archived collections. Some theorists suggest this is evidence of multiversal bleed-through, subtle design inconsistencies, hinting that we are not in the same edition of America we were born into. When even money, the very paper that defines value and trust, begins to rewrite itself, reality becomes less about belief and more about which version of truth you're holding in your hand. Level 94, the "I Love Lucy" laugh track sounds wrong. Sitcoms of the 1950s and 60s used iconic laugh tracks, none more recognizable than "I Love Lucy." But fans are now reporting that the laugh track sounds different than they remember, flatter, less dynamic, almost synthetic. Some say specific scenes they once watched with uproarious laughter now have muffled chuckles or subdued crowd responses. Others feel the timing is off, as if laughs come too early or too late compared to the punchlines. Worse, some episodes now seem to contain dialogue edits, with familiar lines missing or catchphrases altered slightly. Of course, restoration or remastering can affect sound, but for longtime viewers, the shift feels uncanny, not updated, rewritten. Is it a technical issue, or did we once watch a version of Lucy that no longer exists, its energy, rhythm, and charm replaced with something subtly, inexplicably hollow? When the audience's reaction changes, but the joke stays the same, what is it exactly that's laughing? Level 95, the name of the human skeleton. In anatomy classes, the full human skeleton is often given a name. Many remember it as Stan, used widely in textbooks, science museums, and classroom references. But today, the most famous reference skeleton, the one displayed at the Smithsonian and in educational models, is called Spencer or Mr. Bones. There's little record of widespread use of Stan as the standard skeleton model. And yet, people from multiple generations claim to have learned with Stan. Some say their teachers introduced Stan in class. Others recall museum tour or biology textbooks that use the name repeatedly. Some even go back to those sources, and the name is gone. This isn't about a universal name being replaced. It's about a shared character in science educati. On mysteriously becoming someone or something else. Was it just informal, or is it possible Stan the skeleton existed in another version of academic culture that's since been overwritten? When even the bones of learning have changed, you start to ask what other facts might have restructured themselves beneath your skin. Level 96. The internet used to sound different. Older internet users remember the dial-up tone vividly, a shrieking, mechanical chorus of beeps and static that signaled connection. But some now say that when they revisit archived recordings, the sound is wrong. It's either shorter, slower, or has different pitch sequences. They claim it feels artificial, like an imitation of the tone they remember from hours spent waiting to log on. Even stranger, some report that old audio files they had saved have changed. The files are the same length, but the pattern of sounds seems different, subtly shifted. Could memory be warped, or did we use a different version of the internet tone from a slightly different branch of technological development? For digital natives, this Mandela effect hits deep. If the sound of connecting to the world has changed, does it mean we're no longer connecting to the same world we used to? Level 97, the "You Are Here" map marker moved. Many people remember mall directories or museum maps with a red dot and the words, "You are here," a comforting, static label. But some now report instances where they return to familiar locations, the same shopping centers or attractions, and find that the dot has moved. They insist they were located in a different part of the layout years ago. In some extreme cases, the map itself appears mirrored, left and right flipped, or certain stores' locations shifted. Others feel that the layout has been subtly rearranged, though there are no public records of renovations. Skeptics dismiss this as memory error or remodeling, but Mandela effect observers ask, if a basic reference point like "you are here" can change, what happens when you're no longer where you were supposed to be? What if the label didn't move, you did? Level 98, Mandela's funeral was televised before he died. The Mandela effect gets its name from this. Thousands of people around the world remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s and his funeral being broadcast on television. But Mandela officially died in 2013, long after serving as president of South Africa and becoming a global peace icon. Those who recall the earlier death say they watched news reports, discussed it in school, even mourned. Yet no such event ever occurred, not in this timeline. This was the spark, the first mass realization that maybe, just maybe, history could change, and we would be the only ones to notice. And if death isn't fixed, what is? Level 99, the color of stop signs. You might laugh, but some people genuinely remember stop signs being yellow, not red. They recall being taught in school, even seeing them on real streets in the US and abroad in yellow with black text, not white on red. There's historical precedent. Yellow stop signs did exist in the early 1900s, but the current red design has been the international standard since the 1950s. Anyone under 70 should have no memory of the yellow version from real-world use, and yet many claim they absolutely saw them in modern times. Is this memory a bleed-over from older pictures or cartoons? Or did some of us grow up in a version of reality where stop meant yellow and only just crossed into red? When the rules of the road change and only your mind remembers, what else might the signs be warning you about? Level 100, yourself, the final Mandela effect. Here it is, the final level. Many people exploring Mandela effects eventually experience a disturbing moment of personal dissonance. They come across photos of themselves, journals, old emails, and feel something is off. Their handwriting looks strange. Their face seems slightly different. A favorite shirt they remember owning never existed. A childhood memory they held tightly for decades is no longer shared by family. It feels internal, private, so subtle that you begin to question your own sanity. This is the most terrifying Mandela effect of all, yourself, a sense that you too may have shifted, that your memories don't match your reality because you no longer belong to the version of the world you were born into. Did the world change, or did you? And if you're not the same person you were, who are you now?